Right, okay, I've got a few spoons to show you to talk a little bit about spoon design. I'm not going to go on forever about this, I hope, and I haven't prepared anything, so brace yourself to be bored. Here's a spoon. This is my favourite spoon at the moment. It's one of my oldest spoons. It's got an octagonal handle. It was inspired by the ones I'd seen on Robin Wood's website a few years ago. It's not owned by me anymore. I gave it to a friend who I live with at the moment. It's made out of hawthorn and it's from a bent branch, so the grain follows the bottom of the bowl perfectly, which means in theory it should be stronger. Water won't soak into the end grain, and that's one of the main causes of cracks in bowls, is water will soak into the end grain, and then depending on how quickly it dries out, can cause it to crack. Also, the other problem you get is right on the end, the rim can be very vulnerable to chips. So if it follows the grain completely, it's a lot stronger than if you've just got a kind of 2 or 3 millimeter bit of wood that can just be chipped off the end. One of the things you find with beginners, which I was really when I was doing this, is that they find bent branches that've got a diameter of about kind of that size. So it's kind of size that you'd split in half. And often branches that are that kind of size will have a lot of knots in them because they're quite immature. So this spoon here has got a lot of knots, which makes it quite gnarly, which I quite like, but I wouldn't consider doing now because it's just a hassle. Also, so I tend to use bigger branches now, or I'd actually use parts of the tree trunk that have got nice bends in if I'm looking for a bend, and those bits of wood will be stronger. The other thing you find is that you might not be used to the grain direction changing. If you've been used to using straight wood, then going to bent branch, you can get confused about the grain inside the bowl. And this bowl's got a very rough finish. You probably won't be able to see that, but it still works a treat. The reason why I like it really is this kind of little hump there, kind of naive design. I think now one of my kind of main obsessions with my spoons is trying to get a design that I'm happy with from this profile and from the side, and how that movement works in 3 dimensions. And generally now I try and not have that hump, but I quite like this because it's a sweet, innocent little spoon, and it's not. Maybe look at some of the stuff I do now and think it's a bit kind of vain, really. So if I show you a couple of the octagonal handled spoons that I make now, so the other 2 videos that I've got are of these spoons. So there's one of me making one of these spoons, and these are my favourite spoons. I find them very comfortable to use for eating. I like being able to twizzle them like this, as opposed to the kind of generally accepted kind of Swedish style handles that look very pretty, but to my mind aren't as comfortable to hold. So yeah, there's the video of me making one of these, and then the video of the love spoon that I made with a heart on the back, and you can see where I got that idea, because all of these spoons tend to have that shape at the back, which I really quite like. And I definitely prefer it being rougher like these are, than having it. It took a fair amount of effort to make it into a heart. I had to try harder to turn it into a heart, and I think they look better like this. But it's basically a heart shape. You can also see the crank, and there's no hump here. I don't know whether I've already said that. No hump there, and then it's got a nice smooth bend here, which means it's more comfortable to put in your mouth. So these are quite small spoons. They're fairly kind of modern style, similar to what you'd have made in metal or horn or whatever, and you don't have the rim catching your lips here. They wouldn't be necessarily great if you're trying to gobble up a load of soup. Probably about the same kind of volume a modern soup spoon, but if you compare them to old soup spoons or cowl spoons, then they don't hold as much volume, and they would have flat tops, and they'd be for supping from, rather than actually putting the whole spoon in your mouth. So there's a couple of spoons. Right, what else have I got? Another spoon that I've been making recently is one of these. It's a little eating spoon, and it's based on ones that I've seen Robin Wood has taken photos of. They're on his blog from St Fagans or Fagans Museum in Wales, and they're traditional eating spoons, and they've got a lovely selection there, which I'm hoping to go and do some research on at some point. But here's one that's inspired by that. What intrigued me actually was they looked quite fancy and quite delicate, and you don't tend to see traditional eating spoons like that. And I was very intrigued by this bend here, and trying to think why or how they made that. And then it suddenly hit me. Obviously, that bit has to follow the grain. So this is made from a bent branch, and the bend follows that and goes into the bowl a little bit. So it's quite an even bend through the whole thing. And if this didn't follow the grain, then it would be very weak there. I'd be able to snap that very easily. I don't know whether you can see me kind of flexing that a little bit. But even the strength that I'm doing it with now would snap it if it didn't follow the grain. So I was intrigued by that, but then I also thought, well, to be honest, most of the spoons that I've seen that look to be made in the style that want to be held with their thumb like that, I found very uncomfortable to hold. So I was intrigued to see these ones had such a large kickback. And I think that's very important, rather than just a small thumb impression, to have that bend going up. And I think that gives you a lot more control. But the other day I was out, and I bought some lunch, and I didn't have anything to eat it with. I hadn't got any used spoons, and this was out for sale actually, and I ended up using it, and I liked it so much I decided to keep it, which is nice. It's not a very deep bowl, but I was kind of I had to follow the bit of wood that I had, so you can only do your best. But yeah, these actually fantastic to use for eating, so I'm quite chuffed with this. Right, let's have a look. So I haven't actually got a video of one of these spoons yet, but this is one of my serving spoons that I make. It's slightly larger, it's got slightly more of a crank and deeper bowl than the cooking spoons that I make in the same style. I'm very pleased with this design. I think, it doesn't have that hump there. It's got quite a nice smooth transition to the neck, where it's thicker here, where it's thinnest here. Sorry, where it's thinnest there. And I'm quite pleased with the kind of movement up the handle, where it changes from a bump here to a flat, and a flat here to a bump. This one's been made with one of my symmetrical hook tools, so it's got very nice smooth bowl, which actually none of the ones that I've shown you have been so far in this video have been made using that those special hook tools, because I've only had those this last year. So yeah, I'm very pleased with this new design. Okay, and I have another this is an old spoon that I made 2 or 3 years ago. It's made out of hawthorn. It's been used daily by the person I gave it to, and it is a bit rough, but it still works. And you know, the flat planes that I was trying to achieve, I guess at the time I just didn't really have the skill or the understanding about the shape that I was trying to create going through here. But hopefully you can tell the difference between this kind of, well, it's a similar style to the spoon I've just shown you, but hopefully you can see that I've refined my design a little bit. To be honest, they always sold really well anyway, so it's my own personal obsession really, I guess. And I have one more spoon. This is quite a traditional style. It's a copy of inspired by a gypsy spoon from Romania or Bulgaria, I think. And these are great little cooking spoons, or little serving spoon. But very much like the design of these. I just thought I'd let you have a quick look. So, I've maybe not gone into as much detail as I perhaps would have liked to, but I've done my best, and there you go. Bye.